Sì. Could I have all the candidates to the stage, please? Thank you.
Hello, I'm good. How are you? Good evening, everyone. We're going to be starting in about 9 minutes, so if you'd like to find a seat, and we'll start in about 9 minutes. Okay, we're going to start in about 3 minutes, so if you can take your seat, thanks. But you have to remember that there's a step there.
I know.
You're going to go head over heels and over to heels. If you do, I'll try to reach out.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. We're on this together. This is the only time I'm going to get to sit down.
Well, are you going to stand up the whole time? Or I
During
guess
the
you kind of
question
have to, right? Otherwise, they can't see you.
And I can't see the timer unless I'm standing up.
And you
So
didn't
during the questions, I'll stand.
We couldn't have like hid some Uggs under there or something. You could slip them on.
Last year I wore heels and I changed, like afterwards.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
before and after. It's real classy. I went around the corner and like
Slip them on. I know. It's funny, but yeah, as you get older, I can't do heels.
I don't know who decided that women should be like propped up slightly.
I don't
Whose
know.
idea was this?
Yeah, I know. But I do find that a naturalizer gets a nice small little hump.
Yes, I like the wedgie.
Yeah.
And then I like these because they're push buttons.
Right.
So they're really padded, but they're
Yes.
old, so they get more out of it.
Is it minimum to also write the questions down?
Yeah, that's her.
Okay,
Yeah, I
because
have it
I'm
here.
gonna collect it now. I won't do it again because we won't have that much time to go through again.
Okay, it says here, submit your question cards by 7:15.
Oh.
Just hold them up and someone will grab them from you.
Oh gosh.
That's what.
Hi there. Oh, great. Thank you.
Thanks. Can we? Well. Okay.
I'm just going by what
I don't
Sasha
think we
said.
should.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I hope everybody's eaten because we're going to go till 9. So my name is Catherine Hott. I just actually moved to Beaumont in November, and I really love it. So I just wanted to get that out there. I am a director on the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to welcome everyone to the 2019 Provincial Election Forum for the Leduc-Beaumont riding. So before we begin, I wanted to have a reminder to turn off your phones, be mindful of the noise level, and if you want to submit your question cards by 7:15, we do have someone going around collecting them, but if you want to submit them by 7:15, just hold them up and someone will come and grab them from you. I also want to, on behalf of the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are on traditional lands, referred to as Treaty 6 territory, and that the City of Beaumont and all people here are beneficiaries of this peace and friendship treaty. I want to thank the City of Beaumont for their support in ensuring that there's a quality video and audio streamed live for our viewers at home. So now I'm going to introduce the candidates. We have 9 candidates here with us this evening, so thank you for joining us tonight. I will introduce them in their respective party. So starting to my left is Shay Anderson with Alberta NDP. Rob Connolly, the Alberta Party. Kevin Dunn, Alberta Independence Party. Chris Fenske, Alberta Liberal Party. Sharon McLeese, Independent. Gil Poitras, Alberta Advantage Party. Jen Roach, Green Party of Alberta. Jeff Root, Freedom Conservative Party. And Brad Rutherford, United Conservative Party. So thank you for joining us again here tonight. So we can't move on without our moderator. So I'm going to introduce you to our moderator this evening. Her name is Anne-Bear Porter, and she is a vice president with the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for coming out this evening. We really appreciate you being here, and we really appreciate all the 9,000 people watching at home. That was the number from last time we live streamed debates in Beaumont, so that's an exciting opportunity for the Chamber and an exciting opportunity for all of Beaumont to get involved. So we have a lot to get through tonight, but my mom is here, so I need you to all agree with me about something. I need you all to agree about how we're going to conduct ourselves tonight. What I'd like to hear is clapping and nodding. What I don't want to hear is vulgarity, booing, or inappropriate words. And I will jokingly remind you of that if you do it. And then the second time, I will have you removed from the space. So I hope that that's clear. Can we all agree to those rules? Woohoo! Thank you so much. We just want to have a fun night and learn something, right? That's our purpose today. So, in that vein, I get to invite each candidate up to do their opening statement. I would like to invite Chris Fenske of the Alberta Liberal Party first.
I'm a little taller. I'm Chris Fenske, and as you likely can guess, this campaign has been an uphill one. Between being a traditionally conservative province and what's going on in Ottawa, it's not easy being an Alberta Liberal right now. But what's easy isn't always what's right. Politics has become more about preconceived notions than about generating ideas. We get so caught up in the labels or expectations that we write off great ideas just because we've always voted a certain way. But life doesn't always go as planned. As things change, so must we. It's how we move forward as a species. Why should you vote for the Alberta Liberals? Because it's closest to the center. From there, we can take good ideas from both sides of the spectrum and create a future that benefits everyone, not just the left or the right. Tonight, I ask you to do the same thing we tell our children. Remove your labels. Hear the ideas being presented to you. Do you hear equality? Do you hear stability? No labels, just ideas.
Thank you. Could I get the timer on the screen? Thanks. I'd like to call Rob Connolly of the Alberta Party.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for showing up and being a part of the process. The Alberta Party is a fiscally responsible and socially responsible party. This election is probably the most important election we've had in over 3 decades. Because of the polarization of politics, which is rooted in fear, not facts, the Alberta Party would provide Alberta government that is fiscally and socially responsible with your tax dollars. In fact, we believe that most Albertans are positioned fundamentally in the center of the spectrum. There is an option. Do not waste the vote in fear. We're here to offer an option that you don't have to sacrifice fiscal responsibility in order to get social responsibility. And you don't need to. Thanks for coming.
Not his fault, our fault. All right. Sharon McLeese, please, an independent.
Hello, Beaumont. Bonjour. My name is Sharon McLeese. I'm your independent candidate for Beaumont-le-Duc. My campaign is based on 4 principles: to return our province from party politics to people politics, where legislation aligns with the will and the ideas of the people and the taxpayers, to push to pass legislation that will institute the principles of initiative, referendum, and recall, to fight for an immediate end to equalization and the unfair redistribution of Alberta taxes, and ultimately to build support and to sponsor a referendum for Alberta independence. It's time for Alberta to make it on its own. It's time for us to reject the control and the hostility of Ottawa. It's time for Alberta. Vote for Sharon McLeese.
I'd like to call Jen Roach, the Green Party of Alberta.
My name is Jen Roach, and I am your Green Party of Alberta candidate. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It has been a great experience running in this election, but I must admit that I do understand where Kermit the Frog was coming from when he said, "It ain't easy being green," especially in Alberta during an election. I would love to ensure Albertans have job security by moving away from the unstable boom and bust cycle of the oil and gas industry and investing in green renewable energies now. Alberta can remain an energy leader by having a vision beyond tomorrow, today, and not risk leaving Albertans behind. The Green Party's 6 core principles include respect for diversity, nonviolence, ecological wisdom, sustainability, social justice, and participatory democracy. Great government policies are created when these 6 principles are included in every decision. Please consider giving a green voice to the legislature this year and vote for the future. Vote for me. Vote green.
I'd like to call Kevin Dunn of the Alberta Independence Party.
My name is Kevin Dunn. My experience is in design and manufacturing in the fields of directional drilling and aerospace. I've worked on the Apache program as well as the Dreamliner. I need to ask you a question. Are you afraid of Quebec? Since 1961, we elect national party after national party that only serve the purpose to completely drain Alberta annually. When you elect a national party candidate, you elect a eunuch servant to Quebec. You know it, I know it, we all know it. The only power they will have is to choose which position they'll be in at the end of the year. When Quebec comes barreling in, now they did well for Quebec. She managed to give them $60 billion last year in federal tax and transfer payments. That's more than enough to close all of those wells that we need to close. We ended up -8, and she shut down a pipeline. Bitch. Our little predictable merry-go-round that we call politics would say that it's Brad's turn, PC's turn. He's a nice guy. Please don't make him bend over. I'm talking about the return of power and money in avalanche form. The question is not if Alberta should be a nation. It's if you deserve the nation of Alberta.
Way back down. All right, we'll see. I would like to call Brad Rutherford of the United Conservative Party.
Thank you for being here this evening. Your presence is an indication of your care and commitment to our community and the province. I am Brad Rutherford, and I'm very proud to be the United Conservative Party candidate for Leduc Beaumont and to have the opportunity to serve not only the constituents here, but the whole province. My wife Laura and I are raising our 2 young daughters right here in Beaumont. We're very proud to be a part of the community. And to help this community in riding, we need a government that will focus on getting investment back into the province to grow jobs, wages, and opportunity, to be focused on getting pipelines built, on reducing red tape, lowering taxes, building infrastructure, and scrapping the carbon tax. We will grow the economy and do this while protecting frontline services and making sure that we have the best health and education systems in the country. I hope tonight that you'll see that United Conservatives have a plan for jobs, the economy, and pipelines. Thank you.
I will call Jeff Root of the Freedom Conservative Party.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here. I am Jeff Rout, and I'm running with the Freedom Conservative Party of Alberta. One thing to note that's very interesting is that there are 2 candidates here right now that are advocating for Alberta independence. And that's not an accident. Albertans are starting to realize just how little control they have when they deal with federal politics. The FCP wants you to have more control over your lives. We will have laws and policies that increase your freedom. We will move all the powers that we currently are allowed to move from Ottawa to Alberta, and we will petition to Ottawa to divest even more powers from Ottawa to Alberta. Only Albertans are affected by the laws that govern Alberta. They don't affect the lives of other people, so only Albertans should have any control over the laws that govern Alberta. We want to make that happen while giving Canada a chance to keep Confederation not only together, but stronger, because then our democracy will be stronger. Thank you very much.
I call Shay Anderson, Alberta NDP.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I am Shay Anderson. I'm the incumbent NDP member here running for re-election. I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting us. I'd like to thank our fellow candidates up here, and also I'd like to thank you for being here tonight, probably because the Oilers aren't in the playoffs. Too soon, sorry. I'm sorry, apologize. I had to. You know, I know that around this time with this campaign, we're feeling a little bit of fatigue. I know all of us up here are as well, and I know you folks are too. You want to get done with the political rhetoric. You want to have clear, concise answers, and that's something that I want to do up here. We've accomplished a lot in this region. We've been busy. There's a lot more to do, and I'm not done fighting for our communities here. Beaumont's the 4th fastest growing community in Canada, and we need to ensure we're supporting our region's growth, and that's by investing in our families, our schools, and our infrastructure. Elections are about choices. On a April 16th, I threw myself off with the Oilers joke. April 16th, you guys have a choice, and I humbly ask that you consider me for re-election in this riding. Thanks.
I call Gil Portress of the Alberta Advantage Party.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take this opportunity to introduce to you the Alberta Advantage Party. We are one of the newest parties in Alberta. We spent a year and a half going around the province collecting signatures the hard way to become a party. We are a grassroots conservative party. We are not a dictatorship from the top. We listen to our members, and we do what our members tell us to do. If I'm elected, my number one and my only job is to represent the people in this riding. Not the leader, not the party, but what the people in this riding want, need, and deserve. I don't have to take orders from my leader. I bring the concerns of this constituency to the legislature. That's the job that we have as MLAs. We haven't seen that very much in the past. Like I said, we are a conservative-minded party. We have a plan to put 50 to 100,000 people back to work within the first year, and it's a proven plan brought on by the experts in the oil and gas industry. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we're going to begin with some questions. And of course, we're going to collect some. Have we finished collecting? One more round of collecting. Jessica and Bill, our volunteer directors from the Board of Chamber of Commerce, will be doing that. And I'll get us started off. If I could ask you very kindly not to plod in between, because we're actually going to whip through as many questions as we can so that we can get as much texture out of the night as we can. So we're going to start right off. The first person to answer a question will be Kevin Dunn. And all of you will answer the same question. And you're going to use the microphone in front of you. Yep, share and share alike. Let's do this. It's the Alberta way. And I'll remind you all that vulgarity, inappropriate language, sexual innuendo is not acceptable. All right. Number one, let's talk high schools, because here we are in a wonderful high school. Let's do this. With an increasing number of elementary school students in our system, this came right from the web, our government needs to address the foreseeable lack of infrastructure for high schools here in Beaumont and province-wide. Beaumont is one of the fastest growing communities in Canada. How will you advocate a need for a new high school within this community? Please, you have 1 minute.
Actually, that's an easy one for us. Basically, once we stop making transfer payments in the billions and billions, we're talking about an avalanche of funding that comes back to us. It's not that we're asking for it. This is coming back to us. Anything that we want to put forward, basically, we want to have a world-class school system. That's all. One thing we all can agree on. We're not going to be able to pay for it at the rate we're doing it now. If we are our own country, we could easily have a world-class school system. And not only that, we're at a point now, 1 in 20 boys are going to be autistic. We're going to need at least 1 or 2 schools specializing, because it's a whole spectrum of children in autism. It's very specialized. And because there's so many now, 1 in 20, we need to have a specialized schooling system also set up for them, because many of them are highly functional, but they just need the correct guidance. We need funding for these kind of things. You have to stop throwing all your money back into Quebec and keep it here. Thank you.
Same question to Gil Petraeus.
Funding for schools is something that has to be a long-term plan. Unfortunately, what we've seen in the last number of years, 5 to 10 years now, is governments come into elections and they're making large promises of 100, 200 schools to be built. That's nice and easy to say, but where's the plan? There's never proper planning ahead of time. The PCs didn't do it. The NDP aren't doing it. We need more schools. At one time in Beaumont, the population of kids in school was 40% of the population. That needs infrastructure. But until you plan it ahead of time and have a solid plan, you will not be able to find the money to do it. Our plan to find some funds is to go through every department within the government and find out where the loopholes are. Where are we wasting money? We've been talking with some auditors within the government, and they have told us of billions of dollars that are available in different departments. We plan on finding out where those billions are and put them to good use. It's not about raising taxes. It's about stop wasting the money of the taxpayers.
Rob Connolly. Sorry, I've gone in the wrong order, but we're going to finish this question and then I'll do it right next time. It's a moderator problem.
That's right. Education is number 1 for the Alberta Party. Resources will not be an issue. I know it's hard to believe. If you believe that your youth are your most valuable resource, why would you not invest in it appropriately? You know, the funding should not be an issue. The Alberta Party has committed to doubling the amount of education assistance. I have a daughter that's a French immersion teacher in the city, and she's ecstatic that that's our policy because
you have 5 seconds.
Grossly needed, and we're committed to it.
Jen Roach.
Children are our future, and we need to invest in them as well as their infrastructure for their schooling. I would look to reduce public funding for private schools from 70% to 50%. This money could be used to improve schools and build new ones. We could use that money to fund extracurricular activities, which would improve civility within the schools and increase the talents of the children. And we could also use that money to fund teachers' salaries. The other thing that I would agree with that some of the candidates have pointed out is that proper spending of money is crucial. And I know that we had $23 million that could have been used towards teacher salaries that was spent on advertising against BC by the current government.
10 seconds. Oh, you're finished. Thanks. Sharon McLeese.
Yes. Is there a... Okay, there we go.
You got this.
Yes, of course, schools are absolutely the foundation of our society, and it's what grows and looks to the future. But I would be cautious and be careful, because right now, I know the population of Beaumont is booming, and perhaps all of those people who are disaffected with the city will come to Beaumont. But other than that, our population right now is kind of stagnant. We've had a lot of people moving out. So what is really important is that we don't spend loads and loads of money on infrastructure that may end up being not utilized. I'd like to see some busing. I'd like to see people coming to bigger and better schools and having the top things in those schools, having the very best in those schools, and not just
10
building
seconds.
a whole bunch of schools spread over a lot of space, but looking for waste, keeping the infrastructure to a minimum if we can, and putting the money into the kids.
Thank you. Gil Portreas. Am I saying that correctly, sir?
I've already answered this one.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My bad. Shay Anderson.
Perfect.
I'm
Thank
on
you
the
so
wrong
much.
list here.
I appreciate it. And yeah, we are a growing community here, obviously. And so when I was elected last time, we noticed that. And we built École Champ-Valet and Mother Duville here. But we're also in the process of modernizing J. LaPointe, the junior high. And we're about to start on the modernization of the high school here. I've worked very closely with the school boards, 3 school boards here, Star, Black Gold, and the Conseil de Scolaire Nord. With their schools here, and we know that we built built and modernized 244 across the province, and they were capacity right off the bat. So we need to do more. We need to make sure that our kids have those schools to go to. They have those teachers, those educational assistants, and the resources that they need to get a good education. As well, I've been speaking with the Francophone population here, the parents and the school board about a Francophone school, because we know the besoin d'un école aussi. So we need to work on that as well, and we're a growing community, and going forward, we'll be building, in particular, high schools across Alberta, because we need them.
Brad Rutherford.
Thank you for the question. So the first priority of a United Conservative government is to continue to build schools, and we're going to prioritize capital funding for that purpose, but we're also going to audit where the funds went that were dedicated for classroom size reduction as well, because over the last 4 years, classroom sizes have continued to grow, and we need to find out where that money went and how it was properly spent, and if it was properly spent, sorry. So high school here is a priority. Schools across this riding are a priority, but we're also going to lift the cap on charter schools as well, and we're going to maintain school choice. Thanks.
Chris Frensky.
So the kids are our future, and they're not just the future. It's not just their future. They're our future world-class workforce, and education spending is our top spending priority. The school districts have the plans. We need to, stop being in the way of the school districts and work with them. Don't be a top-down management style. And as an MLA, I would be trying to prioritize both Beaumont and Leduc, because they are at capacity even before the doors open, as Shay mentioned. And we also want to find some efficiencies. There's money that is disappearing into holes that we're not sure what it is, and we need to find out, was that spent properly? If it was, okay, great. If not, let's make sure it doesn't disappear down that rabbit hole again. Thank you.
Jeff Root.
Yeah, this is a big issue, and we are seeing some interesting sides here. We've got one side saying that we need to have a lot more education because children in the future, we want to have them give the best possible future they can have, and that's true. We've got another side saying that we need to keep our money in tight. We need to make sure that we're not having another burden that we're going to give our children in the future, which is a massive amount of debt. And that would prevent them from having good services of their own and for their children. And that's also true. So how do we reconcile these two opposing positions? Well, one way to do it is to look at what Sweden did, and they had the exact same problem. And they just opened it up to more privatization. They said, now, we don't want to cut any kind of public spending, of course, but this is a way to increase the amount of spending for education without increasing debt. Because if you keep your spending the same, but you allow capital costs being paid for by private investors, then there you go. You've got more schools being built without any extra costs being made for it.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, question number 2 will be done correctly. My apologies to the audience. What's supposed to happen is someone starts, and then everyone answers going in reading direction. So my apologies, I looked at the list incorrectly. So we will be starting with Gil in question 2. How will you, and this is dear to my heart from the dozens of questions that came from the internet over the last couple of weeks, how will you engage business if elected to ensure that future policy decisions do not add to the bottom line and create or inhibit business ability to create prosperity for Albertans? Word for word from the internet.
Can you read that again?
You bet. I'll paraphrase from the internet. How's that? How will you engage business if elected to ensure that future policy decisions do not inhibit business and their ability to prosper? Starting with Gil and going this way, and then back around.
The first thing we need to do when we talk about business is we need to find out what their needs are, what their concerns are. Too often in the past, what we've had is governments that walk in and dictate. No, this is what we decided, you live with it, you pay the bills, you pay the taxes, but you don't have a say as to what goes on. Being a grassroots party, we believe in listening and acting on what the people tell us, and that includes the business people. When it comes to our tax plan, it will help businesses keep more money within their business instead of paying it on higher taxes. We'll reduce the taxes for businesses to 10.5%. We'll make sure that when it comes to the employees that they've hired, that we don't raise the minimum wage, but we raise the tax credit every year rather than raising the minimum wage. When you raise the minimum wage, you take money out of the owners of the business's pocket. If you raise
10 seconds.
If you raise the tax credit at the end of the year for the employees, it's actually not hurting the employers the same way. And that's what our plan is.
Thank you. Jen, you're up.
Well, small business and business in general is obviously very important for our economy, and we want to keep that going as best as possible. I'm not sure if a lot of you know that the carbon tax, some of the revenue used from the carbon tax actually goes towards tax cuts for small businesses. So far, there's been $220 million worth of tax cuts that have happened there. The other thing that the Green Party would implement is something called a guaranteed annual income, and that would ensure that every Albertan receives the same base amount of income, and that would give more money in the pockets of Albertans to spend in business, which would help the economy overall.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. A very significant part would be that the FCP has a philosophy that we won't have a party whip. So each candidate is only going to represent their own constituency. So that gives a much closer connection between you and your representative. But also using this exact chamber is a great method of keeping in touch with business and the business needs, as well as with their government and their representatives. So I would say using those available resources is the best method of keeping in touch with how a government should make sure that we're best representing the businesses and the small businesses of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a great question because there's over 170,000 unemployed Albertans right now, and we need to put a focus on growing jobs in the economy. So number one is to repeal the carbon tax. It costs your small business an average of $4,500 a year, but it also has taken about 6,000 jobs out of the economy as well. There'll be a tax cut on job creators. Corporate taxes went up, revenues went down. We need to focus on lowering the tax rate on job creators so that they bring investment back into this province. We're going to pass the Open for Business Act as well and focus on reducing regulations. Reducing regulations will make us more competitive, not only in this country, but in North America, where we're competing for oil and gas money, and we're seeing that investment go south right now. So we have to be more attractive to investors here so that we can bring jobs back.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Jen did mention that carbon levy is something that we did use to drop the small business tax from 3% to 2%, but there are some additional things we're doing. In the platform right now, we're talking about creating a small business investment office to streamline business regulations. We've also done a few other things out there. There was no economic development and trade ministry before, and basically what I heard from small business and businesses in general when I was first elected is, where is there a one-stop shop? And that's why we created that ministry in particular, to help businesses across the province. We're also working on a common business number initiative, which will cut down red tape and make it easier for businesses to incorporate and to move across municipal boundaries. The other thing I would say is that working hand in hand with the Chambers of Commerce out here, it's been something that I've tried very hard to do, to make it every chamber event, speak with them consistently on what they're hearing from their members, because the Beaumont Chamber and the Leduc Chamber know a lot of people around the province and a lot of people around the country. They have a lot of knowledge that we can tap into. So it's been a very, very good way for me to understand what I need to fight for them, and I will continue to do that because as the MLA, I have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
10 seconds.
So I'll continue to listen to them and fight for business in our area.
I like the word engage. Engage business. We need to consult if we're going to make big decisions like the effects of the carbon tax. There's a reason that the province had to pay out $2 billion because they didn't realize the carbon tax would trigger an out for power generators. They handed back the PPAs. That did not have to happen, that $2 billion. That is money that costs everyone tax money. And that is totally true. And then they doubled down on it. They wanted to play Mr. Harper, let's litigate. More money, more money.
5
and then
seconds.
What ends up happening? More money out of our pockets that could have went to schools.
Thank you.
Small business is a very large part of our third of $1 trillion GDP. And the government doesn't create jobs. You people create jobs. Our job is to make the foundation for you to create your businesses. The easier we make it, the more jobs you will create for the economy, because we don't create jobs or make jobs. So our job is basically support. A good example, we have a massive industrial sector in Nisku. Have you seen the roads? It's pathetic. An industrial area like that should be able to handle very, very heavy machinery. All those roads should have been done a long time ago. But when you're only left with crumbs every year to shuffle around, that's when they cancel the avenue on 65 every year. Because that's 10, 20 million or so. We can say, you know what, let's bring it over here to keep canceling these projects.
10
When you bring
seconds.
back this money, you're not canceling this stuff anymore. You're swimming in wealth. You give it away every year since 1961. It's time to stop. It's time to stop being property.
We need to make a better environment for business. We start by reducing the corporate tax to 10%. Eliminate business tax for small businesses for their first 3 fiscal years. It's their toughest time. Let's allow them to get on their feet before they have to worry about that. We want to raise every Albertan's basic personal exemption from $18,915, where it sits right now, to $57,250. That allows Alberta employees to keep more of their paycheck in their pocket without punishing the business for it. and we want to make the carbon tax revenue neutral for both businesses and workers. Thank you.
Yes, my business, my property is in Nisku, and Nisku pays massive amounts of taxes and gets very poor services and awful infrastructure in return. The Chamber of Commerce here, of course, this is of interest to you, this question, because you are the Chamber of Commerce, and as it should be, because the fact is that what's happening now, and certainly it's happening with our federal government, but even provincially, is that businesses come into our jurisdiction and they are regulated, often over-regulated. The rules are changed, goalposts are moved, and they really don't know what to expect. We've seen this an awful lot lately. They're going to leave our jurisdictions, and they're not going to come back if they cannot rely upon sound regulations, well thought out rules, and know they can count on those. So small business is absolutely crucial, and small business is not getting much out of this whole process right now. So we do definitely need to stop taxing them to death.
Thank you all. Question 3 is, what will you do for people who are marginalized? For example, people who are living in poverty, right here in Beaumont, emancipated youth, Indigenous persons, the homeless, others who are vulnerable. And we are starting our questions with Rob Connolly.
The Alberta Party believes no one will be left behind. So funding for social programs and those sorts of issues need to be funded if it needs to be funded. But also the legal system has to be respected. In other words, the charter rights, you know, whether you're in the LGBTQ community or poverty is an issue. The funding needs to be there, but the respect and the laws of the land have to be, you know,
10 seconds.
upheld. Got to respect each other.
I've worked with many people that they would say are disadvantaged. That's a huge spectrum that we're talking about. Here, we have the ability to retrain people in almost any field that we want to, especially if we have the funding. Like I say, when you're left with negative $8 billion from the last year after producing $68 billion, what are you supposed to do? What are you going to do besides what you have now? You're starting off with negative $8 billion this year. So, and that was in a year with high suicides, high unemployment, and he still produced $68 billion. You guys are incredible, but you gave it all away again. But once we stop doing that, world class across the board, because it's you people that will be set free. No more no, no more no. Everything we want to accomplish, we can accomplish. Anything we put our minds to, we can accomplish. Anyway, next.
Well, this is a very complex question, and I think it really deserves more than a minute, but I'll give it a best shot. You know, the equal opportunity and the rights of the individual are Liberal core values. And I'm going to mention 2 points here, although I'll refer everybody to our platform on our website, albertaliberal.com, for more. But we want to put in a basic income for all Albertans. It's the future of social programs. No more complex bureaucracy to try and have to weed your way through it to get your social support. Just a very simple formula. If you fall under this certain income line, great. You're now enrolled. If not, and there's a different line for both singles and couples. We also want to revise the education curriculum to honor the truth behind the residential school system, and to really reconcile with Aboriginals. Thank you very much.
I'm a member of the Apartment Owners Association, and the Apartment Owners Association tried very hard to convince the City of Edmonton to change their strategy on homelessness. We do not want to ghettoize the poor and the homeless. And I think we have to provide homes for them, but we can't keep building buildings. We need to let the private sector do this. We went to the City of Edmonton, we made a great suggestion. We said, look, work with people, landlords. I own that building. I'm responsible for it. I get taxed for it. Put 10% of the homeless in all of the buildings and make sure you support these landlords and let them go. Don't ghettoize them into buildings in downtown Edmonton. Let them live throughout the city in homes that are provided by private landlords, taken care of by private landlords. The taxes are paid by private landlords. I would like to see that happen. I think it's a great idea, and we won't spend a whole bunch of money on needless infrastructure.
The Alberta Advantage Party believes in compassion and self-reliance. If people need a hand, they don't need a handout, they need a hand up. In the past, our provincial government have basically been giving people that needed help a little bit of money just to make them barely survive, but they could never become self-reliant because they never had enough to get on their feet. We believe in giving enough to people that need the help so that they can become self-reliant and move on their own to do what they wish to do. We do not want to control Albertans. That's not our job as a government, but we need to be here to help them when they need help. As a Conservative party, a lot of people say, well, Conservatives aren't very compassionate. They think about the money all the time. Our party is not that way.
10 seconds.
We believe in making sure that people get the compassion they need when they need it and get the funds they need to help them get back on their feet so they can get moving on their own.
I would work to implement a comprehensive strategy to end poverty by having a more equitable distribution of resources. What this would do would be, it would enable us to put in place a guaranteed annual income, which I had mentioned earlier, where every Albertan would receive a base amount of income. And what would this would do would enable Albertans, every Albertan, to live in dignity. By having everyone have a basic income, it would eliminate poverty and it would eliminate homelessness. When poverty and homelessness are eliminated, so are the programs that we currently have to fund those areas. That money could be used to put into other areas such as healthcare and education. And people's health are improved once poverty ends as well, which would also give us more money back into our healthcare system.
10 seconds.
This would put people in a position to become more employable, which would help our economy overall.
You know, the best cure for social problems is good employment. It solves most of our issues altogether. So what we need to do is bring back the jobs. What we need to do is attract new business. We need to have lower the taxes, so, get rid of any of the red tape that is preventing businesses from flourishing. And when that creates jobs, what we have is more government revenue. We have more people who don't need assistance. But of course, this doesn't work for everyone. There's always going to be people where that is still not going to be a good solution. So we can't forget them as well. We need to have a good social safety net, which is a responsible safety net that also tries to get people back on their feet and get them towards good, sustainable employment. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Of course, the economy is an important aspect of that, but there's many aspects to this question. So to start off, we need to support civil society, the not-for-profits and the charities that do a lot of the frontline work that help people who are coming out of violent situations or who are in poverty, who have addiction or mental health issues. We need to support those groups, not just make large bureaucratic solutions, but move money to the frontline services. And that's going to help you cover off affordable housing. It's going to help you provide better mental health care for people right in the community. And that has to include the rural community as well as they're moved from urban centers, and First Nations as well. And another part of helping grow the economy for First Nations is having them be financial partners in pipeline and energy development, help grow economies in and around their reserves so that they have better economic opportunities as well. So there's a number of things that we can do, but we have to remember that it's those frontline services, the volunteers, the people in the community who put in all those hours, those are who we need to support.
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge question, cross-ministry and cross-government, obviously. And some of the things we've been doing, you know, for example, down in Leduc, there's 64 affordable housing units being built over there. We've increased support for mental health and addictions. We've also invested in affordable housing for First Nations and Indigenous communities across the province. Indexed AISH, which was a huge thing that hadn't happened for a long time, which will help people out there as well. You know, things like affordable daycare, $25 a day daycare that we've piloted and now we're expanding because it's worked so well across the province. Retraining people out there in apprenticeships, getting them to better paying, highly skilled jobs out there to make sure that they have the money to pay the bills and put food on their table. We're also putting in supports for LGBTQ youth because we know that they're the ones that are most disproportionately affected by youth suicide. And making sure that they have supports in place is a big deal as well. So, like I said, it is a cross-ministry, cross-government thing, and there's a lot of work to be done, and we'll continue to do that.
Question 4, pardon me, from the floor. Thank you so much. Beaumont has a unique childcare challenge. We're a growing town. The early childcare centers are at risk due to operational cost. It is less of a daycare and more of a preschool type of setting. If elected, how would you support helping this piece of your community become more sustainable using a collaborative approach? And we are starting with Jen Roach, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you to whoever gave us this question. It's a very good one. I'm aware of the unique childcare challenge that Beaumont has, and when I first found out about it, I wondered to myself, well, if it's so great, we should make all of the childcare like this in Alberta because that would be best for, sounds like, all the children. I would do what I can as your MLA to keep that program in functioning order and make sure that the program continues to go. I don't really think that profit should be considered in childcare, so if that was one of the issues as to why they were looking to close it down, then I would probably advocate to make that a publicly funded resource.
10 seconds.
And make sure that that continues to happen.
I would say that the absolute best way to alleviate the problem there is to lower the overhead costs and do that by getting rid of the carbon tax, get rid of the excess taxes. We're going to abolish small business taxes completely. They're not even going to exist. And we're going to reduce larger corporate taxes to 10% and also the personal tax to 10%. We're doing that in day one. We're not going to do this in a tiered process. It's going to happen immediately. And the reason for that is there's a strong belief that this is how we can encourage businesses to spend more money, how we can encourage businesses or entrepreneurs to invest again, to build businesses. So by reducing the overhead on these daycares, they're going to be able to afford more staff, they're going to be able to afford more hours, they're going to be able to take better care of your children.
Thank you. And of course, childcare is an important topic for Beaumont and I think for all of the riding. But as we look at local childcare, I'd have to be able to look at how much money is being spent on it from the town, how much the province can contribute to it, what grant programs are available to support it. So we have to look at the overall picture of what we can afford. Property taxes in this town are high already. And frankly, the province is strapped for cash. We're broke, right? We're billions in debt. And so we have to prioritize where we're putting funds and making sure that we're growing the economy so that we can afford these kinds of things.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very good question. I think in Beaumont we've got the most kids under 4 in Alberta, so it's, you know, we have to be careful when we talk about childcare. Is it a daycare or, you know, like the center we're talking about here is more of a early childhood learning center, and I think it's one of only 3 in Alberta that cities run. So one of the things we need to do is work in collaboration with the city to find out what kind of grants might be available, if we can leverage federal funding as well, to see how we can find efficiencies to work that center. We know it's a really good center. In fact, my 2 kids were on there for 2.5 years for a wait list, and we didn't get in, unfortunately. But it's something that's needed here. There's more and more daycares being built across Beaumont and across our region and the province. And it's why we expanded the $25 a day daycare, because we know that when we do that, it allows more people, in particular women, to get back into the education, or into the workforce, and also to further their education and get back into the economy, which creates more jobs and puts more money into our communities as well.
If you can invest in your kids and childcare, then, I mean, what can you? The Alberta Party will offer more for lower and middle income families, will receive financial support to cover the cost of licensed childcare through a new voucher program. The voucher can be used at any licensed childcare and will provide a subsidy of up to 100%. It's based on needs, for example, if you have a combined income of less than $30,000, it will be free. Cost to you will be zero. It's expected that parents attending post-secondary education and those earning minimum wage will receive 100% of the child care cost. Now, this gets parents that would otherwise be at home get back to work, and that is good for the economy and for the town.
Thanks, buddy. I love this question because we already have an answer for this one already done months ago. Our municipal roads plan in the very first year in our budget provides $36 million per municipality, because this is your money not going anywhere. Your taxes, they will go to $45,000 before you start paying any tax. So basically, you pay no tax up to $45,000, 20% after that. These are the things that happen when the money comes back. So a fully funded daycare, or mostly funded daycare like we have in Quebec, because that was your money paying for that, is not out of the picture. We're talking about an avalanche of wealth. We're not playing with the crumbs anymore. So fully funded daycare is not a problem, especially in a community like this, because you can also spend those funds toward monitoring offenders that for some reason get stuffed upon us. Even though we have this young community, our hands are tied. We had those twins that were released not too long ago. It enraged me. I don't know about any of you people.
10 seconds.
But I was just full of rage when they do these things. This is ridiculous. You need the power to change it so the public safety comes first over these kind of offenders.
Thank you.
You won't have that until you have the country of Alberta.
So this is a multi-part question with a multi-part answer. I'd refer you back to the small business question we had before. Making it cheaper and easier for businesses to start would make it easier, would allow for more childcare businesses to give it a go. We also want to recognize local government as being more important than a top-down management strategy. The municipal governments know what they need better and sooner than the provincial government ever will. Let's let them tell us what they need and work with them to find any sort of strategies or solutions that could be out there. A basic income that the Alberta Liberals want to put in place would allow more families to be able to afford daycare, along with the subsidy that if you make under $40,000, it would be $0 a day, and scaling up to $45 a day for high income earners. Thank you very much.
Just to start with, I always get a little nervous when I hear about women in the workforce and moving them back into the workforce, because it's good for the economy. I'm very happy to see women move into the workforce if that's what they want to do, and childcare is important that they get that. The unique childcare challenge, it has to be a collaboration between the municipalities, the parents, and the province. Certainly, we all want our kids to be raised well and to have good education, and this is really a learning, this environment that you're talking about is a learning environment. I'm going to go back to the idea that we send $5,000 per person, per citizen from Alberta off to Ottawa every year that we never get back. If we were able to keep that money for each man, woman, and child in this province, we could have the most wonderful daycares for every child, and that's what we need to do. We need to take our money back so that Quebec doesn't get $7 a day and we're fighting over $25 a day daycare.
Thank you.
The daycare issue in Beaumont has been around for a long time. Beaumont has one of the few daycares that is paid for or subsidized by the municipality. When I was on council a long time ago now, we had that same issue at the time as to how we were going to fund it and to what level. We do have one of the best daycares in the province. It's won awards a number of times over the years, but the cost is always an issue. As a party, what we are proposing is $300 a month for every child up to the age of 4, for the parents to decide whether or not they want to stay home or pay it to a child care. It's their choice. So $300 a month per child is what our plan is. When it comes to preschool or kids that are only there before and after school, that is a different problem in itself. I know, having
10
talked to them
seconds.
in the past, it's an issue that a lot of people overlook. The kids are there before and after, and it's a different type of funding that's required, and it's something that needs to be looked at a lot further.
Thank you. All right. From the many questions online, what is your plan beyond pipelines for Alberta oil markets? Beyond pipelines for Alberta oil markets. We're going to start with Sharon McLeese, please.
Well, we certainly are beyond pipelines, aren't we? Because we're sure not getting our oil to market through pipelines, so we better figure out some other idea, mustn't we? But I don't think trains, boats or planes are the way to go. I think that what we need to do is we need to absolutely find our own way out of this country where we have a national borders that we can control, that we can deal with our trading partners from around the world, including the ones next door in BC. We need to be able to get our product to market. What my plans are, the oil industry has all sorts of good methods of drilling for that oil, bringing it up and getting it to the markets if we simply get our hands untied to do this. We need to get out from under the burden that has happened to us. We need to get our oil products to market.
The investors in the oil industry have said that they're leaving the province. They already have. They've taken their $100 billion and they've left the province until we can do something that becomes more profitable for them to come back. One program that we have in place that I mentioned slightly earlier is that you can use the abandoned oil wells that are a light crude rather than the heavy crude, and there's room in the pipeline for that oil to get to market. That pipeline is not full for the light crude. There's over 300,000 barrels a day that can be had if we change the legislation and stop the monopoly of only large businesses that can go into those wells. Small and medium-sized businesses are ready to get into that business, and it's 300,000 barrels a day that can be had. Nobody is even looking at that market, and it's a different type of oil.
10 seconds.
Well, I advocate for investing in green renewable energies. So that would be my plan to move beyond the pipelines. The pipeline issue, it wouldn't be much of an issue if it was carrying water or something like wine, but because it's carrying toxic materials, that's why a lot of people don't see that in the best benefit for the future. There was an article in CBC today that mentioned that no government can bring back the Alberta bitumen boom. So we do have to start looking towards other technologies to keep Alberta as an energy leader. I would like to see refineries built within Alberta to keep our oil that we are producing and our jobs within our province instead of exporting them outside of the province. And look towards safe alternatives for transporting the bitumen, like bitumen pellets that were developed at the University of Calgary and can be transported by train.
The one thing that's inhibiting us, the thing that's mostly inhibiting us in our ability to export our oil as productively as we would want to do is the federal government. So we need to move control from the federal government over Alberta resources to Alberta as best as we can. Of course, that doesn't solve our problem exclusively because this is also an area where we're dealing with pipelines going through other provinces. So really what we need to do, this is part of our equality or independence campaign. We need to be, the point of being in part of a country is that we're able to have free trade and we're able to move our products across, but that isn't happening for Alberta. So we want to have the proper ability to move our products as Confederation has been promised in the Constitution. And if that isn't given to us, it is time for us to start talking about independence. If you want to go to Ottawa and say, treat us well, you better have a card that you're willing to play that they aren't, that they're actually afraid of. And they aren't afraid of they're not afraid of us having any referendum on equalization because we don't have any power over that. But we do have a power over whether or not we start talking about independence. Thank you.
Thank you. I think for moving our oil, pipelines is the best option. Rail is what we're doing now, but pipelines is what we need to expand the movement of our oil with. Under the federal Conservatives, there was a 1.73 million barrel expansion of oil moving out of Alberta, and we can continue to do that. But what has to happen is, and Jason Kenney has started this, is to build a coalition of premiers across the country that are pro-energy and pro-pipeline, and make sure that we're coming together as a single voice and going to Ottawa and saying this is what we want to do. Trans Mountain is important, but so is Energy East. So is energy independence for this entire country. And when separation will keep coming up tonight for some of the candidates, but I certainly don't think that Canada is broken. I think Ottawa is broken. And we do have opportunities for which to fix that and to put pressure on Ottawa so that we can get pipelines built. And there's a number of different ways that we can do that. And one is a referendum on equalization to change our bargaining power if we need to do that. And it's an option that we can't use lightly, but we have to maintain it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a few different ways we can obviously get more value for our resources here. Trans Mountain's one, but it's not the silver bullet. You know, we just had Line 3 built. It was started in around 2016 and just finished, and that'll carry 760,000 barrels of oil. A lot of people aren't talking about that. That was a $5.3 billion investment in this province. And so that's a big one for us. We're expecting by the end of May a positive outcome with Trans Mountain. I know we need that. And we've also started working with the industry on partial upgrading, partial refining, so we can get more of our product down the pipelines that we already have. You know, some of the other things we've been doing out there, the petrochemical diversification program up in the Heartland and in Grand Prairie, there's 5 different projects right now. And in the Heartland, that's upwards of $13 billion of investment right now. And that helps our area as well with the, you know, transportation. People can get up there. There's a lot of good high-paying jobs up there. We need to get more value for our resources and keep those taxes here and keep those jobs here. So we'll continue to do that and working with industry over the next 10 years. We expect about $75 billion more investment in that area.
It's great to have a coalition of premiers, but you're missing one important part, and that's the one that's heading west, not east. And if you want to get something done, you need to get BC involved on that pipeline. Obviously, they're out of the picture now. We need to get that done. Having said that, the Alberta Party does propose that we take our oil by rail north through Alaska into their pipeline to hit Tidewaters so that we're not reliant on rogue states, if you will, that are within our own country, like BC. So you can you know, stomp your feet up and down, but you're going to have to play ball if you want to get things done. Got to give a little to get a little.
Thank you.
Diversification is a very, very key thing. And when you're a nation, the bargaining power that you have over manufacturers is incredible. I'll give you an example. Right now, we have something like 72,000 jobs being lost to a Chinese canceled order on canola. Where are the rebuttals? Where are the reprisals? We're filled with Chinese goods in our stores. Where are the leaders right now saying, you do that, we're done with you? There's none of this bargaining power. You have none. Even car manufacturers, you'd be surprised what you could bring here when you have the bargaining power. But when you don't get any of this. Not only that, just think of the massive amount of jobs that would be involved when you are the federal government. You're not buying all of billions of medical supplies, billions of your school supplies from Ontario in a forced deal. You're saving, you could literally build a publishing house with the amount that we're being ripped off on those deals. So basically, yes, diversification is very, very key. And we can do that in many ways. Next up.
Thank you.
Well, what Brad and Rob missed was that the question was beyond pipelines. How do we get it out of here? Of course, pipe is the best solution. Safest, cleanest, best, cheapest. You know, Enbridge has had the longest pipeline in Canada and the world for a number of years. I don't know when or if they lost that status, but they put it in place in the 50s and 60s. And the truth is, if we don't get pipes, oil is sunk long term. Trains are a Band-Aid fix at best. Diversification of our economy is a key, but it all comes down to we have to start thinking about this as the golden years of oil may be starting to come to an end. And I know nobody wants to hear it, but we may start having to start considering
10 seconds.
those not easy but true statements as Albertans and as a government. And that's what I'd like to do as an MLA. Thank you very much.
Question number 6 from the internet, once again. And although I've seen something very similar in the cards, so thank you so much. Edmonton and Calgary have an MSI, which means a municipal sustainability initiatives agreements in place, but Beaumont has, Edmonton and Calgary have MSI, municipal sustainability initiatives agreements in place, and other municipalities in Alberta do not, including Beaumont. What will you do to ensure that Beaumont has an initiative in place for future infrastructure investments? And I'm starting with Shay Anderson.
Well, thank you very much. As the Minister of Municipal Affairs, I've been keenly involved in this. The city charters with Calgary and Edmonton were big deals. They were something that had never happened before. They're historic, in fact, across the country, what we did here. That being said, they're 2 out of 340 municipalities and 8 Métis settlements that we work with and deal with. And we need long-term sustainable funding for them. It's been something that's been brought up since I was elected. It's something that we've worked on continuously with the urban municipalities and the rural municipalities over the last couple of years. We extended the timeline for stable municipal funding to 2023 so that it gave us time to work with the municipalities, because there are, as you can imagine, a lot of complexities, and from north to south it's a lot different, and rural to urban is a lot different. So we've worked very hard with them over the last couple of years. I've had a lot of very good conversations about how we would do this going forward, tie it to revenue and to legislate it, to make sure that they know that when they're planning their budgets for the 5 years, that they have sustainable funding to build what you guys need.
Thank you. Funding is huge, and as Shay mentioned, they need some common, they need to know when and that it's going to be there. Because they do planning and it's required. So I mean, it's funding again, and we need to get it to make it viable and sustainable. That's part of the word, right? Municipal Sustainability Initiative. So the municipalities are doing their work. They need support, and the Alberta Party will support any municipality, rural or urban.
Again, I'm not sure where we're supposed to be able to fund this in the present conditions. It just doesn't make any sense to me how you can be $8 billion in the hole and even talk about doing anything. But we do have a plan, though, because in the first year, basically your budget has increased by about $60 billion. So we have the funding for this. We have the money for all of this. Like I said, I already talked about our municipal roads plan. Every municipality will be giving $36 million to do with what they need, because they're all hurting, from the rural to the non-rural. They're all hurting. That's one thing I've been getting calls for, is especially the rural. They have the lowest representation, but they support us. They're all of our base, our farmers, our industry. They need us. So basically, every municipality would be getting $36 million to do with what they need. And that's just a start. That's on top of present funding, because now it's your money. It's not leaving. It's staying here where it belongs. Next.
We want to free up the municipal governments. Like I said before, we need them to tell us what they need and collaborate with them to figure out the best way to do it. And that might mean, that might mean grants, that might mean different tax models, that might mean, there's a lot of different moving parts in something this complex. And like Shay said, every municipality is different. Beaumont's different than Banff. Fort McMurray is different than Fort Macleod. And we need to allow that to be flexible between every municipality and not try to top down tell them, okay, you know what, here's what here's how you're supposed to do it, here's how you're going to do it, because a one size fits all does not fit all. It doesn't fit, it rarely fits anybody. And the Alberta Liberal Party would really work with the municipalities to see what they need and how to work it into all the budgets. Thank you very much.
Both federal and provincial governments make a lot of, pass a lot of legislation that directly impacts municipalities. And they often ignore the cost that municipalities have to absorb because of those legislations, those policies that they pass down. So of course they have to have an agreement to make sure to cover those things. I mean, major programs like immigration, healthcare, education programs, curriculums, we get them passed down to us in the cities and in the municipalities from provincial and federal governments. So yes, they need to anticipate the costs. They need to make sure that they have those sorts of sustainability initiatives in place. They have to find the funding for the cities and for the municipalities in order to fund these things that they pass down onto us. And we can't just be expected to absorb all those costs in each of our areas and in the municipalities and just listen to them as they pass the legislation down to us to be able to afford.
Thank you.
The decision to make the MSIs for the two cities was purely a political decision. The city of Calgary has 26 seats. The city of Edmonton has 20 seats. They got 46 of the 87 seats around the province. So of course that's where the last two governments have been spending their time, trying to buy votes. We are a small community outside of Edmonton, so why should we not have the same kind of arrangement? For a provincial government to give certain benefits to only two municipalities because they're the largest ones and ignore over 3/4 of the province is really not fair. The city charter was something that was negotiated with the threat of losing votes. It was purely a political decision. And what we need to do is make sure that every other municipality, and as your MLA, my job is to fight for what is right for this community. Beaumont and Leduc are what my responsibility is. Not what's good for Edmonton, what's good for us.
I would work hard to make sure that every municipality has a sustainability initiative agreement with the province. And if money is a problem or an issue for getting funding for those initiatives, then what I would propose is that we put in a sales tax. We are the only province in Canada without a provincial sales tax, and we've done some calculations. If we were to bring in a 5% harmonized sales tax with the GST, we would be looking at an extra $5 billion in revenue in our province every year. This money would provide predictability to our revenue, and we don't have that right now in the oil and gas industry. This money could be used to maintain and improve essential services and build the infrastructure that municipalities are looking for.
Well, I think a big focus here is trying to increase local control over what is happening in our own community, and a great way to do that is, well, like what we've talked about before, is not having a party whip. Therefore, what is wanted in Leduc-Beaumont is going to be what's represented in the Legislative Assembly. It's not going to be what the party leader says it's going to be. It's going to be the voice of the people who are living here, and that's a real important factor here. Now, and so that's actually probably the biggest factor. Try to increase local control, try to increase the ability you have to influence your own lives and the lives of your community around it. So I'd leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to be careful because there's 3 Beaumont councillors over there. make sure I answer this properly for them. We're going to maintain the promised dollars for 2019 and 20, and then on future negotiations and contracts or transfers, sorry, there will be a lot of collaboration and negotiation that goes into that. But we're also going to ensure predictable long-term infrastructure funding for the municipalities as well, and maintain those key infrastructure promises that are in the capital plan. But one of the things that we can do to help community grow on its own is also to amend the MGA so that municipalities are able to change or offer property tax incentives as well to attract business in. And then the more business that comes in, we can have a broader tax base right here within Beaumont, and they can be more self-reliant on that. Thank you.
From the floor, thank you so much for contributing your great questions. I have added a little bit to it, so don't be offended, whoever you are. We're going to start with Brad Rutherford. What community volunteer activities are you currently in, and why are you involved? As a volunteer, this is an important question to me.
Well, for the last year, frankly, I've been volunteering my time running politically. I put a ton of hours into this. I've also, for 8 years, volunteered federally with the Federal Conservative Party, and then volunteered provincially since 2015. That's a monthly commitment. There's a lot of that goes into it in campaigning, and for me, I enjoy politics, so I enjoy spending my time on this. So obviously, I like politics if I've made it up to this microphone, so that's pretty obvious to say. But I put my hours into that, and I really enjoy it.
Thank you. So I have 2 little boys here, well, 8 and 10 now. You know, one of the things that I tried to do before as an MLA, before I was a minister actually, was more try to help them out and help coach with soccer and baseball when I could. And in particular, rugby is my big sport that I play. So I help them a lot with that. Once I became an MLA, it was a little bit tougher to try to get out there. So I couldn't engage and be a manager or a coach or anything like that. But I tried to help at practices and things like that when I could. And then once I became a minister, it honestly was... it was very time consuming, so I don't get to do it as much as I would like, but one of the things I have noticed, quite honestly, across Beaumont and Leduc in this region, in fact, the amount of volunteer organizations we have here is absolutely incredible. It's astounding when we have volunteer appreciation nights to see the people that are out there, the selfless individuals, and honestly, hats off to you guys. I mean, that's what I love about living in small communities. You know everybody, and everybody helps each other when they need it, so hats off to you guys.
Thank you. Great question. I have 4 daughters, and they've been in Pony Club and Ringette. I was an executive on Ringette board. But something that really means something to me is I volunteer with it's Catholic Social Services Welcome Home program, and I'm proud. What it does is it takes previously homeless people and gives them an apartment so that hoping that it will keep them off the street and reduce their reliance on hospitals and keeps them off the streets and be a little bit more productive. And so it pairs up. There's 2 volunteers for one formerly homeless person. I also help out with the Hope Mission when I can.
Thank you.
At the moment, I haven't had a lot of time to volunteer. I do have a small group of seniors that I take care of in Leduc, driving around and bringing them shopping and stuff like that. I would like to get involved again with other projects I have been in the past, which was the suicide hotline, especially now because actually that's quite spiked last year, and it's something that's really critical. Another project that I was involved with was with a hospital that dealt with paraplegics and quadriplegics. And went to visit a friend of ours that had been in an accident, and when we went in this hospital, it was just the most dreary place. So we decided to have a pub night on Wednesdays just to try and get these people out of their beds and down there, and we would just hold the drinks for them and have a conversation. And it actually almost makes me cry just thinking about how much it meant to those people. I didn't realize how much an effect a little thing can have, taking 2 hours of your time every week and just having a pub night for people that are sitting around a very dreary building. Volunteerism is like the backbone of our society. It's a very important thing. Next.
I have 4 kids, 13, 8, 5, and 1. I volunteer to my wife. But Shay is absolutely right. The volunteerism in this town has been, I'm still not used to saying city, but has been phenomenal ever since I was a kid. I grew up here. I was born here in came home from the hospital in 1982. I played soccer. My dad managed the team for a little bit, and then he was the equipment manager. I played hockey, and there was so many coaches, so many great coaches that just gave from their time. And these people ran businesses. These people had, important jobs, had lots of time that they really, they could really use to be off their feet, but they're out there giving their best for us. I was in the COPS program a number of years ago, and I would really love to get involved with it again.
I've put in hundreds and hundreds of volunteer hours. I was named the 2004 Volunteer of the Year for my community, and I continue to volunteer in my community. I always end up at the casinos and work there and do the various things. But I teach adults to read for the Family Literacy Program. And that I get great joy out of. It's very, very difficult, a real challenge, but it's a wonderful challenge. I have spent a lot of the time in the last year working to raise awareness about Alberta independence. So for the past year, I have put in almost all of my time with the Alberta Freedom Alliance, raising awareness, working with a group of people, a wonderful group of people in outreach to try to bring this message of Alberta independence to the communities across this province. I will continue to do that. I will not quit until we have Alberta independence.
Well, I've been in Beaumont for 28 years, and almost from day one, I started working with different community groups, from the adult slow pitch, the soccer groups, BSA. I used to run the Lightning Soccer Club, as well as the International Regional Elite Soccer Club. I was president of the Water Play Park Society when we built the water park here in town. The last thing before we started working with the Alberta Advantage Party was I was assistant coach for the Chiefs here in town for the Junior B. In the last couple of years, since October 2017, I became the interim leader of the Alberta Advantage Party, and I traveled throughout the province trying to build up our party. I met tens of thousands of people around the province from one corner to the other, and then always come back and talk to different people here in the community.
10 seconds.
The last thing that I do from time to time still is I sit on the discipline committee for Alberta Soccer. Every once in a while I get a call from them to sit on some of their discipline hearings.
Thank you.
This is a really great question, thanks to whoever asked it. I'm a member of the Leduc Environmental Advisory Board, so I volunteer my time with them once a month. I'm also, I've had the opportunity to be part of their Pollinator Garden Challenge subcommittee, so we're working to increase the bees in our area and the pollinators in general, like butterflies. I'm also on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Subcommittee, so we're working on ways to reduce greenhouse gases within the city of Leduc. I've participated in the Festival of Trees. I volunteered with the Hope Mission just at Christmas time. That was a really, really great experience and very inspiring. And I also volunteer my time for important social justice issues, different activities that happen there, and of course, you do invest a lot of time when you're involved in politics as well.
Thank you very much. The vast majority of what I'm doing right now in terms of volunteer is all school-based, and that includes reading as well as helping out in field trips and so forth. So that's the current answer. Previously, I've been involved in, I was a soccer coach. I worked with Big Brothers and Big Sisters for about 4 years. And I have worked with HIV prevention, STI prevention, and suicide prevention. And that's probably about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 8 from the floor. This is a small business question. We're going to be starting with Chris Fensky. Chris, and onwards, With Ontario changing, so the province of Ontario has recently changed their holiday pay structure back to what it used to be, recognizing the harm it caused to small business. Will your party follow suit or keep it as it is here?
That's an excellent question. And in a conversation with David Kahn, this came up. It was a conference call about a bunch of different things. And as our commitment to small business in accompaniment with the 3-year reduction of our freeze on taxes for new businesses when they first start up, we would revert it. We would follow suit with Ontario. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think that's so. I think that we need to, keep people at work as much as possible and not put too much of a burden on our small businesses. It's tough enough as it is, and then when you add more and more days that are holiday pay days, and then when they fall on weekends, they get extra days off, and that I think we need to be very careful about that, and we need to relieve that sort of pressure on small businesses and keep it as minimal as we can.
As a party, we have not made a decision on this particular issue. Personally, I think what we have now has been in the books for a number of years. If it's something that starts to make a big difference with the businesses, like I said earlier, we are here to listen to everyone. So if it's going to negatively affect our small businesses, then we have to look at it and make appropriate changes that satisfies both sides.
I think that Albertans are hardworking people, and we should keep the holiday pay structure the way it is now, because we need to get paid for our holiday time, and the morale in an employment place is always higher when you're getting the holidays that you need.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jen there. That is, Albertans are very hardworking people, and they deserve holidays as well. We don't have any plans in our party to change the holiday pay structure that we have currently. We do need to be sensitive to the needs of small businesses, of course. We need to listen to that. Additionally, though, we need to listen to the needs of the citizenry and the labor force itself. So we won't prosper very well if everyone is so stressed out because they are working all the time. We do need a little bit of playtime too.
Thank you. The economy's obviously been a struggle over the last 4 years, and for small businesses especially, when you add in the fees and the taxes that have gone up, including the carbon tax, wages, it's becoming increasingly difficult to operate a business and to make sure that you're making a profit that keeps you motivated to keep it going as well. So we're going to reverse the decision on holiday pay, and we'll go back to the return of the regular, irregular workday distinction for calculating holiday pay, and return to holiday pay qualifying period of 30 days in a 12-month preceding the general holiday. So obviously I read that, but I wanted to make sure that I got it specifically right, in that we need to reduce the costs on small businesses. I understand that employees work hard, but we can't just keep raising the costs on businesses to the point where they're struggling. We have to understand that this is a tough economy, and there's only so much burden that you can put on small businesses before they break.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm aware what Ontario just did, and one of the things when we brought this in is we wanted to make sure that we had the same or better labor standards than the rest of the country. I think that Albertans work hard; they deserve to be treated fairly and equally. I know it's something we've discussed before. I've discussed that with a few folks in the room and around the riding. And there's a reason why we dropped the small business tax a third, and I think some of the things I mentioned before about some of the efficiencies we can find in regulations and different ways that we can find to help small businesses are going to go a long way in aiding them to be more successful. I mean, in Alberta we pay $11 billion less in tax compared to the next jurisdiction. So, I mean, that's a good thing for us here. But most definitely, I think listening to our small business, understanding what other ways we can help them is definitely something that I want to do and continue to do. My door is always open, and so I want to hear from them and the Chambers of Commerce in particular as well, how we can help small business going forward.
Thank you. We believe, the Alberta Party believes that small business is the backbone of Alberta, and they need help. However, our employment standards, I think, in Alberta are very good. We have no plans of changing the overtime from time and a half to straight time. If you bank it like Mr. Kenny's party would like to do. If you're away from your family up for, up to 24 days in a row, you should be able to get paid for that at a premium because you're away from your family. And the Alberta Party would never go from time and a half to straight time. Your family's worth more than that.
I love this question, whoever asked it, thank you very much, because I've actually had this conversation with the owner of the business that I work for, because it never really made sense to me. Just because I give you a job, a holiday comes along, why am I paying you money? It really doesn't make any sense. Why do I owe you any money? I just gave you a job, I gave you benefits, I gave you pay on a weekly basis. Where is the liability for me to pay you just because it's a holiday? I believe if you work it, you get paid for it. I agree with that. That's just my opinion though. The party, they would have to make a decision on which way they would want to go with that. But as for the banked hours, if you're banking overtime hours, that's time and a half. I don't know how in the world they can try and take that away. If I work 2 hours of overtime, time and a half, I'm getting banked 3 hours. Come on, let's keep this together here, you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I'll pass it from there.
Question number 9. What are your party's top areas of focus for education? And I'm starting with Jeff Root.
Well, the Freedom Conservative Party wants to have a real world-class education system for Alberta and Albertans. It's absolutely the truth that having a well-educated populace reduces the costs for the future, it reduces crime, it increases productivity. It's top-notch stuff. So we want to maximize the productivity there, and the way to do it is to follow Sweden's example, where what they did is they opened up to privatization, and that brought in a massive influx of money, and they got rid of their budget problem very easily. They went from about 1/3% of their schools being independent schools to over 10%, and that's how it stands today. So that doesn't mean that we have to cut money at all to education. We're not talking about cuts, we're talking about more money. And the way to get more money is not from the struggling taxpayers who are having trouble in a tough economy. Let's get it from some private investors. The same money more money gets spent, and there's more schools for children.
Sorry, can you repeat the question for me?
I knew you were going to ask that. I tuck them away when I ask them. You'll excuse me. I sent them a holiday pay. There we go. Where is it? We're all in this together. You got to wait for me. Okay. It was the Ontario government question, right? Where are we now? Oh, okay. I'm one behind. Moderator of the universe. Here we go. What are your party's top areas of focus in education? Thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things that we're going to do is introduce the vocational high school again. And we're going to make sure that we're focusing on trades, skills, and apprenticeships so that high school students that are not looking to go to university or college have options that start within high school for additional training, and that's going to include on-the-job training as well. We're going to increase funding for women building futures, and we're also going to try to double the amount of schools that Careers the Next Generation is a part of so that kids have a much broader opportunity to see what kind of career options are out there. There's a lot of honor in the trades, and currently we're going to lose to retirement about 3,000 tradespeople every year for the next 7 or 8 years. So this is one of the ideas that it's going to help train the next generation to take on those jobs. And those jobs, frankly, can help people support themselves and their families.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a few different things we're looking at here. Obviously, funding for enrollments when you're talking about the younger grades to make sure that they have, I mean, I think there'll probably be about 15,000 new kids that are coming into school next year. We want to make sure that the teachers are there, the educational assistants are there. That's roughly about 1,000 new teachers that are out there. So we want to make sure, one, that that's there. We know that as well, the education is a great equalizer. So with the curriculum review that's been ongoing for years now, the amount of experts and people across this province have been working on that is incredible. The amount of consultation and people that have really put their lives on hold for this is fantastic. I mean, some of this hasn't been fixed for over 30 years. And in that time, we've got a little thing that's called the internet that's come along here. So we knew that we had to make sure that we put it in the hands of the educators to bring forward things that are going to teach our kids skills like literacy and financial literacy and things like that. But as well, we want to make sure that we highlight things like the RAP program. I saw it actually on the TV up here earlier, which is a great program for kids that want to get hands-on experience working in the trades. Man, that's quick.
Yeah, this is a great question. Personally, I took a trade at St. Joe's in Edmonton, and we didn't have the money to go to university. It wasn't an option. So it really helped me get established. I took the trade at St. Joe's, went on work experience for 4 months, got my foot in the door, and got my journeyman ticket, and then I went, I liked it so much I got into another trade, and now I'm an instructor at NAIT. I mean, we can't forget about, the trades. Unfortunately, with the way the economy is right now, I'm seeing most of my students are in upstream oil and gas and heavy oil, and they're losing their jobs. So that's definitely a focus. The Alberta Party also wants to retrain in 145,000 more spots.
Thank you.
Our goal is to have a world-class education. We should have it. You people know you should have it. We have the type of society that should provide that kind of education. We should be able to look proudly in the whole world and be up there with the top standards, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to specialize in other fields, because right now the world is crying out for robotic specialties. I was even talking to Rob earlier about the fact when he was working at NAIT how they should have a massive division for robotics. Our industrial areas, a lot of them are doing these kind of projects, and they're losing their shirts. They're spending millions because they're all doing it on their own and they have no support. That's just one example of what you can do when you have a world-class supply of students coming out of the schools. Just to give you an idea of what we're up against, India graduates the population of Canada in honor students every year. So if we don't get our stuff together, we're not going to be able to compete. We need to be able to provide everything our students need. And this is important, and you need the funding. And there's only one way. When you stop letting all of your money leave, it's got to stay.
Well, as I mentioned before, the Alberta Liberal Party's biggest spending priority is education. And there are so many facets to that, both obviously in our communities and also in our platform. And I'm not going to be able to get through them all in one go. So if you have more questions, please see me after. I'm going to nail down a couple of the big ones for you. We committed to hire 2,000 more teachers, and I'm reading this because I want to get it right, just like Brad did earlier. As requested by the Alberta Teachers Association. 50% funding increase for inclusive education in the field of supports such as EAs and psychologists and the specialties they need, as well as putting a ban on seclusion rooms. A commitment to introduce class size caps, and a commitment to increase mental health supports. That's just a short list of the things we want to do with education. Thank you so much.
Speaking of math, I wonder if anybody out there is keeping track of the math up here today. Every one of us over and over have talked about how much money we're going to spend in a situation where the revenues in this province have gone down and down and down. So let's talk about the math. In 2012, 13, 14, the Progressive Conservative government brought in a program of discovery math. They walked away from algorithms and from the teaching of math from the point of view of our province being the top scoring math province in the country to now we have slipped to the very bottom. When Discovery Math didn't work, they went and decided that they would call it Inquiry Math, but it didn't change. The fact is we need to look at the best jurisdictions in the world, and they're in Asia, and what they are doing, and that's the way we need to have our children taught.
The Alberta Adventure Party our first plan is to change the curriculum. We've heard from a number of students that have left high school, gone to university, and they said, we're not ready. We have no idea what we're doing here in university because we weren't taught a lot of the things that we're supposed to know when we get here. And that's straight from the students themselves. We want to focus on academics, practical skills, and special needs. I know we had a meeting yesterday with the teachers, the Catholic teachers in Leduc, and they talked a lot about special needs and the need for more funding for some of the special needs students. And that's been identified as a problem throughout the province. So that's what our focus is on changing the curriculum, focusing on academics, practical skills, and special needs.
10 seconds.
I support a strong, consistent public education system, and eventually one day I would like to see post-secondary education publicly funded as well. As an MLA, I would work to develop solutions to reduce costs for students, including tuition charges for universities, college, and trade schools. I would work to improve affordability and accessibility as we move towards a more equitable system with adequate, stable funding of education. And I would also like to reinstate the funding for extracurricular sports, fine arts, and student clubs that encourage healthy community spirit, creativity, and leadership.
Thank you all. We actually are a little bit ahead of time, so I'm going to ask another question from the floor. We're going to start with, by random draw, according to my sheet, Jen Roach. And the question for all of you, though, will be, there are 284, unverified from the crowd, primary agricultural societies in Alberta. Many of them provide key facilities, services, programs in their respective communities. How are you going to support agriculture societies in the future? Jen.
Well, farmers are our most important industry because they provide the food that we eat, and that's important for our life. I would work to keep the lands in the hands of farmers and ranchers, especially the young farmers that are having trouble purchasing the lands to begin with. I would like to encourage the production of organic foods and to make getting the process of becoming organic a little bit easier with the costs offset from the farmers, because that's a very expensive process. We would work to assist the farmers with the Alberta Environmental Farm Plan, and also to fund some further research into sustainable soil use and crop practices.
Thank you. We would also like to keep family farms in the family. We want to make sure that we don't come into a situation where there is a monopoly of farmland being owned by just a few corporations, because that would not benefit Alberta or Albertans. Additionally, we want to make it easier for farms to be able to operate, and we want to do that by, first of all, lowering their overhead costs. Let's get rid of some taxes. Let's get rid of some carbon tax, and make their work less difficult in terms of keeping the pennies working for them. And additionally, we want to have open communication with such a society so that they are able to flourish and let us know what is on their minds. Let's keep politics as local as can be possible, so that we all have as much power over the laws that govern us as is possible.
Thank you. It's important to note that employment in the agricultural sector is down about 19%. There's 11,300 fewer people working in agriculture right now, and it's a very important aspect of our economy. So the United Conservative government would repeal Bill 6 and go back to consultations with farmers, ranchers, and workers to best negotiate the unique conditions that are and pressures of farming. We'll eliminate the carbon tax and reduce red tape burdens while protecting property rights as well. And we're also going to be looking to replace land that has been taken up by urban sprawl by auctioning off some of the Crown land that we have. There's over 100 million acres of Alberta Crown land, and we need to begin auctioning some of that off with consultations for affected communities and First Nations so that we can continue to grow our agricultural industry.
Thank you. I think the question at the start there talked about ag societies, and we've committed to make sure that the funding is there for ag societies and 4-H across the province. They're incredibly important. You know, you can't go to a small town without seeing something that an ag society is doing, whether it's a fair or rodeo or what have you. They're part of that. I grew up with one right close to my house, and actually, in fact, it started in our back field because we didn't have a riding ring yet. So something that's very important to me personally. I think that we need to make sure that funding is there sustainably over the years. And as well, when you're looking at local producers, we introduced the Local Food Act to make sure that we promote more local food out there. And we're going to create a unit to assist retiring farmers to make sure that they can transition to younger farmers and also help the younger farmers to get into it. You know, I've got a bumper sticker there from the county that says "Farmers Feed the Future." I feel very strongly about agriculture in this province. The province was founded on agriculture. It's going to be here for a long time. We're one of the 5 net exporting countries in the world, and we're probably going to be lower than that after that, and I want to continue to support agriculture.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's an interesting concept on auctioning off land so that you can sell it to these corporations. What needs to happen is, if you want to do that, how about help out young farmers? You don't need to sell it. You can you know, lease it out. That's what farmers do with Crown land. Farmers and ranchers, they lease the land already. It's already horrendously expensive. My daughter, you know, fiance they've got a small operation. For him to get a loan from the Farm Credit, his dad had to put up a quarter section just for his small piece. So I think young farmers, to get into it now is horrendously expensive, and it's almost impossible. If you wanted, you don't need to auction it off. You can lease it. There's a need.
Farmers desperately need our help right now. We are losing a lot of our mom and pop farms. Electricity costs are one of the biggest burdens upon them. A lot of that goes back to when we privatized our electrical assets. That was a terrible move that we did there. And now we're relying on industry to provide this instead of ourselves. I know it's a bad word, but I think there are certain things that should be within the power of the people, of you. We shouldn't privatize everything. Critical services and power, I believe, is one of them. Another thing to look at with the farmers too as well is, because they do need a lot more support from us, we tend to leave them adrift, is the whole Monsanto question. There's another can of worms there that's coming out when you are forced to buy the sterile seed and they're not able to produce their own. This is very expensive. But there's many different issues that have to be addressed. We have an agriculture minister, of course, that would address these.
As to the specific question, the Alberta Liberal Party doesn't have hasn't worked out an official position on that yet, so we would have to work that out going into the future. From my own personal stance as a potential MLA, I would want to work individually with the ag societies and farmers on a local level, see what makes sense from near to far. Different places are going to have different soil conditions, different water conditions, different everything. Different amount of gas they need to use to get to market. So, working individually with them to see what supports we can give them will be the key question. One of the things the Alberta Liberal Party does want to do to help farmers in general is increase market access and make sure that the oil by rail plan the NDP put in doesn't affect agriculture industry and doesn't jeopardize their rail access. Thank you.
This is an opportunity for me to emphasize what you would get when you get an independent candidate. I don't have a party that made a platform on this, and I don't think these are the kinds of things that require a platform. These are very much the sorts of things that you talk to the very people that are involved in this process. So an independent candidate would do just that. They go out, they find out from agriculture producers, from farmers and ranchers, what their needs are. The question had to do with agricultural societies in Alberta. Frankly, I really don't see why a government would be making platforms on agricultural societies. This is very much an independent question that independent candidates will address with the people who are directly involved with this, and certainly that's what I would do.
Well, since this question has to do with agricultural societies, I served on the local agricultural board, society board for a number of years in the past, and I see tonight that the president of the local ag society is here in the audience. And here's a man that has put in tens of thousands of hours over the last 20 years helping out the ag society locally. I think he deserves a round of applause because he's put in tremendous amount of hours helping this community through the ag society. They're the ones that put on our fair, or our parade every year for Town and Country Days. They're the ones that work with different groups within the agricultural areas here with the different horse clubs. They put in hours upon hours of volunteer helping the community at their own cost. Now there is a program out there for grants, and that needs to continue because the amount of work that they put into every community is absolutely unbelievable and nobody sees it.
Thank you. You've all been very patient. Excellent. As we finalize our evening and conclude, I'm going to ask each of these folks to give us a closing statement. It'll be about 2 minutes each. And I just ask that you hold your applause till the finish of each individual candidate's speech. That way they get their full time. We are going to go in the opposite order that we entered into this evening with. And I'd like to ask Gil Petraeus of the Alberta Advantage Party to begin.
The Alberta Advantage Party, as I said earlier, is a conservative grassroots party. We were born from the Wild Rose Party that most of you recognize for years in the past. We didn't appreciate the takeover of our party, and we started this new party to make sure that there was a grassroots voice for the people of this riding as well as for the people of this province. This province is based on oil and gas. That's where our money is. That's where our present future is going to be. We need the pipelines, and we've got over 100 years of oil under this province that need to get out. We got over 400 years of coal under this province that we have a project to go forward with that will produce jobs and help increase that industry and make billions of dollars for this province, for the schools and the hospitals and all the other programs that we need. When it comes to equalization referendum that some of the parties are talking about, it absolutely means nothing. We believe in binding referendums. If we're going to ask the people of Alberta for a question, we believe that it has to be a binding referendum so that the government can't back out of the answer. Whatever you decide on referendums is up to you. And then we as a government must follow through and put it into law. There's 170,000 unemployed Albertans in Alberta. We have a plan, as I said earlier, to produce 50 to 100,000 jobs in the first year that we have the final vote in the legislature. Those jobs are guaranteed. They've been researched by professionals within the oil and gas industry by using our abandoned wells and the new technology that Alberta has at its disposal that is not being used by the past government or the present government. We can put Albertans back to work. On April 16th, please vote Gil Petraeus, Alberta Advantage Party. Thank you.
I call Shay Anderson, Alberta NDP.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting us. Thank you to Amber for being our moderator tonight, and thank you to all of you for being here and listening to us and asking such good questions. You know, I love this community. I've lived here for 15 years now. There's a reason why when I first came here that I wanted to live here. It's because of the growing community, the spirit that we have in this area, this region. It's a great place to raise your kids, to work, and to play. I mean, my concerns are your concerns because I live here. I know the businesses here. I know the nonprofits here. I know the people of this new city, the newest city in Canada, actually. You know, I'm worried about the class sizes. I'm worried about the roads that we drive when we go to work. I'm worried about busing. You know, we put green trip funding into the buses here to make sure that we could do more of transportation for people to get to the city or get to where they need to. Et je comprends qu'il y a beaucoup plus à accomplir. I want to continue to work with the Francophone community here on a new school that they need and desperately have wanted for years. We have a growing Francophone population here coming from around the province and honestly from around the country. We have a lot of kids, as I said before, under the age of 4, the most kids under 4. So I want to continue working with folks in this region on the daycare issue, $25 a day daycare that was a pilot and is now going to be expanding. I think it's something that's vital for our communities and to allow those that want to go back into the workforce to get more education to do that. I want to also continue helping our community grow, and you've seen it grow with different businesses over the last few years, of course with Chartier and Bake My Day and Jeff's and the new Range Road Vet that's out there. I mean, there's a lot of really good businesses that are coming in the last few years. I want to continue with our bold, forward-thinking plan to move Alberta forward in an adapting world, a changing world, and make sure that our kids have what they need. So I humbly ask for your support on April 16th. Thank you.
I call Jeff Root, the Freedom Conservative Party.
Hello, and thank you again for having me here. I've greatly enjoyed it. FCP believes that every Albertan should have the freedom to do with their own lives as they wish to do. If they aren't hurting anyone, they should be free to think, believe, say, or do as they wish. We will guarantee that your pension is still around in 40 years by opting out of the Canada Pension Plan and replacing it with a new Alberta Pension Plan. We will ensure our labour force is protected and never again get a double standard from Ottawa by opting out of the Federal Employment Insurance Program and replacing it with an Alberta Employment Insurance. We will guarantee parent choice in education. The funding follows the student. The government shouldn't be able to pressure your decision on education by taxing you for education, but only applying those funds where it sees fit. You should decide what school you want your kids to go to. We will bring back jobs by reducing the cost for job makers. Albertans are ready to get back to work, and we are ready to bring back jobs. We will make sure that Albertans stop being treated like second-class Canadians. We want a fair deal in Confederation, and if Ottawa is unwilling to give us what we need, then it's time for us to start talking about Alberta independence without Ottawa. Thank you very much.
I call Brad Rutherford, United Conservative Party.
Thank you for being here this evening, and thank you to the Beaumont Chamber for hosting this event and facilitating it. I hope this evening was informative for you. If I'm elected as your MLA, I will be laser focused on jobs, the economy, and pipelines. I will be a champion for our rapidly growing region, and I will advocate for new schools and infrastructure so that the services provided meet the increasing demands in this riding. As a police officer for over 10 years, I have protected and helped thousands of people. And in the last few years, I've seen an increase in crime, addiction, and people struggling with mental health issues. As a frontline worker, I want to take my experience of listening, mediating, and understanding that I have learned throughout my policing career and bring it to government. The prolonged downturn in our economy has been a huge contributing factor to these issues, and I have seen this firsthand. People are struggling, and while many other energy-dependent economies have recovered, that recovery has not come to Alberta. We need a government that will be strong and stand up to Justin Trudeau and the Ottawa Liberals for our oil and gas sector and be willing to do what it takes to get pipelines built and show the world that Alberta is open for business again.
We are at a crossroads. We have mounting debt and growing unemployment, and the NDP do not have a plan to deal with either one. This will only mean more taxes, higher interest payments, and more economic stagnation. We need to grow the economy and focus on getting good-paying jobs back to Alberta to help business grow and to create new and exciting opportunities. Our entire platform has been released, and that can be found through bradrutherford.ca. You'll see in that plan a detailed blueprint to achieve these goals. And I hope I have earned your support, and I'm asking for your vote in this election. Thank you.
I call Kevin Dunn, the Alberta Independence Party.
You know, all night I felt like we were reading two different books. That's the funny thing. It's a unique election. It's the first time you've had someone that's come here and says, let's stop being property. But the truth is you are property. Until we change that, there's nothing you can do. Last year you generated $68 billion and you got nothing. $8 billion in the hole is where you end up. So if you want to change this, there's only one way to change this, and that's to take control of your destiny. Like I said earlier, this could be a great nation, a world-leading nation, no problem. Your landlocked country produced $68 billion with 122,000 tradesmen out of work. Suicide rates through the roof, and you still produce $68 billion. And we're going to talk about tax cuts and shuffling money around. You have nothing. They take it all every year. I'm not insane here. I paid for everything myself. I have no funding, including vaccine funding, none. None. I have 2 donations that were voluntary, and I'm proud of that. Because next year, when M103 comes through and C75 comes through, I'm going to be able to say, at least I tried to do something. I gave you the option. I think I'm going to win. I think our party is going to win. We're the only one with the numbers that can actually pull it off. Where you actually, 2/3 of us get in, we have a majority. You will have your referendum. You'll have your nation. All I'm asking for you to do is have confidence in yourself. You people are freaking amazing. There's nothing we can't accomplish. I'm telling you now, there's nothing you can't accomplish. And yet, every year, we let them take everything. This isn't a deal. This isn't even a partnership. You are property right now. Let's end this. Because you know what? The world's going to be watching when we do this. Because once we go, the whole thing falls apart. I guarantee you that. And you know what? We're all massive countries. Every province is huge with no population problems. Germany fits in Alberta like 5 to 7 times. We can do anything you want. Have confidence in yourself. I will do anything to bring you the best education and the safest society. These offenders being released, that shit's going to stop. That's all I got to say. That's not going to happen. Sorry. It just infuriates me when these offenders get released in your society.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
On a regular basis.
Jen Roach of the Alberta Green Party.
People around the world, especially children, are living in the most unpredictable times, not knowing what their future looks like. They are looking to the leaders to start making choices that secure their future, not squander it. The change to renewables will not be fast, but it will be quick enough to encompass the growth future energy demands require. The world is moving towards renewable energy out of an urgent necessity, and we in Alberta must not be left behind. It is time for us to make the difficult decisions that adults have to make and choose not what's popular, but what is necessary. We have the opportunity this election to give the youth hope for their future, for their children's future, and for the next 7 generations. The Leduc-Beaumont riding has a strong connection to the oil and gas industry, being home to Nisku Industrial Park and linked to Leduc No. 1. Oil and gas has served the people in this riding very well over the years, and what it has done needs to be acknowledged and appreciated. However, in the words of Bob Dylan, times they are a-changin', and so must we. The people of Leduc-Beaumont have the opportunity now to vote the first green voice into the legislature, which would give a new meaning to Leduc No. 1 and create a legacy and hope for the children. If you don't know a lot about the Green Party and what we have to offer, I hope after tonight's discussion you will be inspired to check us out online. I will be available after the forum if you'd like any further information or have any questions. Healthy people and a healthy planet serve a healthy economy. When voting this year, have a vision beyond tomorrow and go green.
I call, oh my gosh, I can't see with, there, bright light. I call Sharon McLeese, Independent.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you all for coming tonight to listen to us. We all know what insanity is. It's doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. That, in a nutshell, is where we are now here in Alberta, asking ourselves if we should repeat the mistakes of the past or opting for hope in a bold renewal for the future of Alberta. This Alberta election is no longer about what your government can do for you. That day has passed. Alberta has been harnessed for the best interests of this country for the last 60+ years. We are now being told that even our vastly unequal contribution to Canada is not enough to protect us from a federal government prepared to ravage our economy. We are being told that we are Neanderthals if we don't agree with what the people in the mainstream of Toronto believe in. This election is about Alberta. It's about Alberta patriotism and Alberta pride. It's about taking back our economy and our social and political rights. Throughout this campaign, I have had countless people tell me, I agree with everything you say, Sharon, but the time isn't right. We have to elect another government right now to protect ourselves. Well, I find that really amusing. If we elect another government to protect ourselves, why would we, 4 years from now, decide we want independence? The time is now. There is no better time to opt for to get our own country and our own nation so that we can, in fact, make our own decisions and live our lives according to our own needs. So please go to my website, look at what I have to say there, talk to me, phone me. Please think about giving your vote to Sharon McLeese on April 16th.
I call Rob Connolly, Alberta Party.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing your evening with us. This is democracy in action, and I personally appreciate it. Now, some will have you think that there's only two parties in this. It's a two-party race. Well, that's why I'm here. This is why I believe in the Alberta Party. I actually give Gil, a lot of credit. That's awesome. He lost his party, so he stepped up. That's huge. The Alberta Party has members from every walk of life, former NDP, Wild Rose, PCs. We are a party for all. We truly are. The Alberta Party will make life better for Albertans by bypassing the BC to get our oil to Tidewater through what I previously mentioned. Stimulate value-added processing of our oil and gas supports. Our Job First plan, reducing taxes for small businesses and providing a stable investment environment for large businesses. A Welcome to Alberta plan to attract corporations to relocate to Alberta, signaling that we are once again open for business. Our Children First plan, making childcare more affordable for more families. New dental coverage for Alberta families. A clear commitment to work with Indigenous peoples as respectful partners, and a commitment to healthcare. Now, you have a choice between a party that values social responsibility and fiscal responsibilities. The NDP refused to make the tough decisions that are required, and therefore we are on a crash course with a $100 billion deficit with servicing costs of $2 billion. Now, Mr. Kenney is using Mr. Harper's playbook that was rejected and allowed Mr. Trudeau to form government. So
I call our final speaker, Chris Frensky, Alberta Liberal Party.
Thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you for the other candidates and taking part. This may be my last chance to speak to you before you vote, so I'd like to take this time to talk about the controversial topic of a sales tax. As I said earlier, what's easy isn't always what's right, and the hard truth is that the Alberta Advantage is no longer advantageous to Albertans. There's only an advantage if we have the low tax combined with high resource royalties, and which we've seen have left us in a very vulnerable position. Economists, researchers, and finance ministers agree. Sales tax makes sense if it is revenue neutral. The Alberta Liberal Party understands that. That's why we want to increase the basic personal exemption on your income tax to $57,250, leaving about 2/3 of Albertans paying no income tax at all. A couple could earn $114,500 before paying income tax because it would be transferable between spouses. Albertans earning over that would see a 1% decrease in their income tax rates. Tourism and visitors would bring an extra $1 billion into the budget, revenue we can use for areas that are important to us, like education, healthcare, and paying off debt. Maybe a debt doesn't sound like a priority, but remember, it costs money to service a debt. It costs a lot of money to service a $58 billion debt, money that could have been used towards public services. Experts have been saying for 30 years we need to consider a sales tax. Some experts say that a sales tax is unavoidable in the next 10 years, and nobody wants to touch that third rail. What if we stop focusing on a future re-election and just focused on the future? We don't believe in sneaking a tax in after Election Day. We believe Albertans should be part of the decision-making process. We know they want stability, not the roller coaster we've been seeing that predictably leads us to job loss. Political parties will promise no cuts, but where is the money coming from? If you have any more questions and want to see a copy of the articles and experts I'm talking about, I'm available here after the forum or on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you and the opportunity to make a difference in your lives. And on April 16th, I ask for your support.
So that concludes our candidate forum this evening. I just wanted to thank those of you in the community that came out tonight. I wanted to thank our volunteer Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors for helping to set all of this up tonight, and of course the City of Beaumont. And I want to thank our 9 candidates tonight. I think it was a long evening, but I think everybody answered the questions well. So you're invited to stay. The candidates have agreed to stay on a little bit longer tonight if you'd like to ask them questions personally. But that wraps it up for us tonight, so thank you everyone for coming.